podcast in the history of the known universe. We got a great show for you today. A lot of football to get to. Obviously, big NFL day. Tough day for the Texans. College football, very interesting. Ohio State, Michigan lived up to the hype. And some news from UH is Dana Holgerson's out. So I'm going to get into that. Jermaine Every's going to join me shortly. It's been a while since we've had Jermaine on the show, so that'll be fun. And Tracy Cowley to show off her boobs and talk about the SEC and make her case for Jaden Daniels as the Heisman Trophy winner. A&M with a new coach. All of that is stuff we will get to today. And, and then some other fun stuff. I mean, it's not going to be all sport, but it's a lot of sport. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I know we took the week off, but it's really great to be back with you guys. And I hate to start the show off on a negative note, but some of you guys know my brother Mag, and he was here last week actually. Recently got married to this wonderful woman, and unfortunately her daughter was killed in that bad accident on I-10. I think it was Tuesday night. She passed away on Friday after being on life support for a couple days. So if you're a praying person, just some thoughts and prayers for them. Not the Twitter thoughts and prayers that don't mean anything, but it's just devastating to lose a child. And I can't imagine. I've now had two friends in the last 2 years that have gone through that, and just trying to be there for them when they need me and drink some alcohol with them. So, it was just an awful situation, and there's no way to put a positive spin on it. But I did want to acknowledge that because, Mag's been a supporter of mine for a long time, as well as my friend and my brother. I mean, we grew up in the same house together. I think I've told the story about him on the show before, where he had a brain tumor when he was 17 and forgot about all of us. And we all grew up in the same house. And I didn't see him until 17 years later. And probably one of the best days of my life. We're at a birthday party for our 2-year-olds at the time. And he starts looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, Mag? And I hadn't, like I said, 17 years he lost basically memory and everything. And we reconnected, and he started remembering everything. And it was just a beautiful moment. And I'll never forget that. And so I'm really sad that he and Annabelle are going through this. It's what should have been a happy time. We had a great Thanksgiving planned, and we were all going to go to their house, and her kids were going to be there, and his kids were going to be there, and it just sucked. And so I stayed drunk on Thanksgiving basically. Welcome in everybody, Chucky D, B Hannon, Said Boss, all you guys, man. I'm always so glad to have you in, and you guys have been around for a long time, going back to the Blitz days, and I really appreciate all of you. So today we're at Midtown Bar and Grill, which new sponsor on the show. It's 415 West Gray. So if you're in Houston and you're just wandering around, there's parking here, which in this neighborhood can be a pain in the ass. And they've got great food. Tommy, who runs the place, is just an amazing guy. I just had the Salisbury steak, which I bragged about last week. And guess what? It was wonderful. It was delightful. And it was just fantastic. So come on out. They've got great food. It's a really cool place if you're going out on like a Friday night or a Saturday and you're going to go drink. Come eat here first. And I drink here too. Let's be honest. But come on out and, like I said, say hello. They got a great staff, good people, and just happy to have them on board. And happy to be doing the show out here on Mondays. I want to tell you about one of our other great sponsors, the Phoenix on Westheimer, which best soccer bar in the city. So if you're into soccer or football, as you guys call it, the people who are really into it, or football, depending on your language, Phoenix on Westheimer is the place to go. Another one with great food, a great staff. Make sure you check on what the specials are when you go, because they have some amazing specials. I had the best chicken Alfredo there last week. So they've got the Champions League going on. You got your Dynamo, who won their game. You can watch the Dynamo games there, and you can have an absolute blast. So go check them out, Phoenix on Westheimer. And Ice Cold Hot Takes. It's soccer. Yeah, I mean, I've really gotten to where I like going over there, not for the big days like Premier League, because that gets really crowded. And some Barcelona guys stole my chair last time I was there. So, not a Barcelona fan now, but no, if you go for like Celtic, they have like a group of about 10, 12 people that go to watch Celtic games, and they've got every game, right? They've got, I don't know what service they have where they can have every game on. Like, I've never seen a Celtic game on TV except when they're in the Champions League. And those guys go and they have a great time. So go check it out. All right. So Jermaine will be joining me shortly, and we'll get into a lot of the NFL stuff. But a couple of big, I think big news stories with A&M hiring Mike Elko after first going after Mark Stoops. And then people didn't want that. I think that's going to work out better. I may be wrong about this, and I know there's a lot of people who really wanted Mark Stoops. I think Mike Elko is a hell of a coach, and I think he's going to do a great job there. He's got the right mindset for A&M. He's got experience there, and I've said all along, and we'll talk with Tracy about this later when we get into the SEC, but the A&M defense has not been the same since he left. And say whatever you want about DJ Durkin, great reputation, but that Aggie defense just hasn't been as good. And they should have made the playoff in the COVID year when Mike Elko was DC, and he's done a really good job at Duke. They won 9 games the first year. Not as good this year, but he lost his quarterback. I think with the kind of talent he could get at A&M, I really like the hire. And I'd be curious what you guys think on the Twitch chat, because this guy can coach football. And maybe he's not the sexy hire. Now, the interesting name I heard on Saturday was if Ohio State lost to Michigan, that Ryan Day might be in play there. I can't imagine Ohio State letting that guy get away. And, I think it was one of those to get clicks, because apparently there really was not anyone else in the running except for Stoops and then Elko. So I think, it's hard to call something a home run hire these days because you never know. But I think this is the best hire they could have made, and I think you're going to see a pretty big change for A&M. But, the problem is it's one thing coaching in the ACC, and, he's got limited experience as a head coach. So if you want to, pick out the negatives, I think that's part of it. But coaching in the SEC, you're up against everybody, right? You're going up against Nick Saban. You're going up against Brian Kelly. I mean, some of the best coaches in all of football, and that's always a problem. And Jimbo couldn't handle it. But I also think Jimbo got paid. And Behannon asked, do you like Fritz or Kingsbury for UH? Yeah, that's one I wanted to get into a little bit, because obviously I have a lot of interest there. And, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bummed that Dana got fired, because, he's a friend. But he also lost a fan base. He lost almost all the big money alums except for Tillman, and even Tillman, couldn't defend him anymore. Just like I really couldn't defend him anymore. I wanted to, but it just wasn't. I don't know what happened, and we talk about this all the time. Sometimes guys just forget how to coach, and I think, especially talking to Dana. Welcome, Lamont. Good to have you, brother. But I think Dana forgot how to run an offense. And I think this whole thing where he wanted to be more of a run-based offense was never going to work. That's not what UH is. So as far as the candidates that are out there, I think there's been a lot of talk. So I'll just tell you what I've heard, because there's some names out there. Traylor from UTSA, I think, would be a really good hire. Pellyrat likes Fritz. I like Willie Fritz a lot. That's another guy that I would love to see them get. My only concern there is that Willie's 63 years old. Hey, Raj, welcome in. Sports and stuff to you, brother. But he has experience in the state. And what he's done at Tulane is amazing. But I would love either one of those guys. I would take either one right now and be thrilled with them. Kingsbury's name has come up. I don't know about Cliff. I like Cliff. He's too handsome for me. But he also, I just can't forget about him having a losing record at Texas Tech with Patrick Mahomes. And what are you gonna do with Donovan Smith? So I love his offense when it's clicking, and I want that kind of offense back for UH. But I don't know. I just don't know about Cliff. I mean, he's a big name, but and he had success in the NFL before it all fell apart on him when Tiny Kyler got hurt. But I just don't know about that one. I would prefer one of the other two. And Pelly Rat mentions Keeler from Sam. Yeah, my only concern about him is, boy, they had a big adjustment going to Conference USA this year, and they did not play well. And, Big 12 is a different animal, as Dana liked to keep telling us. Oh, it's so tough. And Chris from Sam Houston says Kingsbury wouldn't last longer than a year or two. I tend to agree with that. The other name, and nobody wants to hear this, but I've heard that Art Browse will get an interview.
Hello. Fred, are you there? Okay, guys, I'm not sure what happened to Fred, but we are still live. If you can hear me, if you can see me, I'm Jermaine Every at _Jermaine. You can find me on Twitter and on Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook, I believe I'm I converted it over to the professional profile finally. So you guys can follow me there. Don't send me a friend request.
All right, let's try this again. You guys hear me? There we are. Yeah, I don't know what happened. It just basically kicked me out of the room, and so I'm back. But just to finish up what I was talking about with UH is a lot of the olds there want Art Browse to get an interview, and I just don't think that's a good idea for a lot of reasons. I mean, he oversaw a rapey culture, and then he hasn't coached, and he's almost 70, and then an interesting name was PJ and I. Part of my show prep is when I go to PJ's and hang out with PJ, we talk about all this stuff. He loves the James Madison coach. Now, I don't know if there's any ties to Texas there, but that would be an interesting hire. And I think it's time to go get somebody who's on the up and coming, as opposed to, let's trot somebody else out there, or Major Applewhite just because everybody liked him, or and I still go back to this, and then Tom Herman's name popped up, but Tom burned some bridges there, so I can't see that happening. Plus, I don't know if he's another guy that just kind of forgot how to coach. But anyway, welcome in, Jermaine. It's been a while since we've had you, so I'm happy you were able to make it. And sorry to interrupt your work day, but I'm glad.
Oh no, trust me, it was one of those days, man, where it's a Monday after a holiday, so I was kind of busy, but it was just rip and running with the daughter. Had to go pick her up from school, and then you go back to work, and then you got this and that. One thing leads to the next, and God forbid you catch a train while you're going anywhere, because I literally have to cross 2 trains every time I go to work and come home.
That's because you live in the sticks, man. You got to get in. Well, we got trains here too, so never mind.
Exactly.
And Chris from Sam Houston brings up another name that has come out as Gary Patterson. Which I'm intrigued and concerned about, right? Again, I'd rather. I mean, the guy had an amazing career at TCU, but the last few years were not good. He does have Big 12 experience. The guy's got a statue at TCU. He might get we might get him like a GI Joe soldier at UH if he does anything. But that's another name that's been out there. And if it were my choice, it would be trainer Willie Fritz. That's the direction I would go. But that's just me.
No, I love the Willie Fritz. I love that hire because he's a guy who I believe I heard someone speaking about this earlier, and the fact that they brought up that he's a coach who's coached in a big city before, so he can deal with coaching these college kids with these NIL deals, and you're in this bigger city. He's also a guy who's won at that AAC type of level, so he's the perfect slide him into this slot now that UH is in the Big 12 to take the next step up in the level of competition that he's coaching against. And also the level of kids that he can recruit.
A couple from Zed, and Zed says, what about Nick Saban's OC. I'm not a huge fan of his. I think, whoever runs that offense is running Nick Saban's offense, right? And even Bill O'Brien had a lot of success there with it. The OC from Oregon is kind of an intriguing name too. His name's come up, and so I don't, but I like somebody with Texas ties. I mean, the only coach I can think of that came in here did something well in Texas was Matt Rule, and he hired all Texas guys, right? For his staff. So it'll be interesting because I think this is a key hire for UH, and I don't want them to hire a retread because I think they could set them back 5 years. And somebody mentioned earlier about Kingsbury would only last a year or two. I could see that. I think you've got really good candidates available right now that could help fix the program. And
yeah, there's a bunch of them out there. But one thing, going back to what you said earlier about a lot of the olds want Art Browse to at least get a look or an interview. I think it's that, and the same thing with Major Applewhite and stuff. It's like you want to bring back these retreads and these nostalgia acts and whatnot. And a lot of the times that's not what's best for business. You sometimes have to look a little bit deeper. You want to plan for the now and for the future, not just look towards your past and say, hey, let's bring in this coach. Because a Willie Fritz type of guy, or gosh, I can't even remember the name of the other guy you had just named, but those two guys would be perfect for the now and for the future, because you're in a Power 5 conference still, quote unquote, still a Power 5 conference. So you still have a chance to make some great headway. However, I think John Granato brought up a good point on his show today, and I believe last week, talking about the NIL deals and the struggles that UH has to deal with when they're recruiting against other schools. Dana was able to pull in a lot of NIL stuff just because of who he is and the friends that he has. But who's to say that next coach will have that same stroke, that same pull, that same ability to pull in enough NIL money to compete with these other schools, not only in the Big 12, but I mean, you got to think about it. Look around the state of Texas as well.
Well, yeah, because Baylor's not going anywhere. TCU's not going anywhere. Look, Texas and A&M are on a different level, so they're not really in the conversation. But somebody mentioned that they'd have to shell out a lot of cash for Traylor because they're going to offer him $2 to $3 million more. UH can come up with that, but I also think the opportunity to coach at what is now a Power 4 school, because the Pac-12.
Oh, well, yeah, the Pac-12 is.
Yeah, and really, and we've talked about this. AJ and I have talked about it a lot on the Thursday show. You got the Big 10, you got the SEC. They're ahead of everybody, but there's no reason a Big 12 can't be the ACC. And right now, the ACC, they've got some name programs like Florida State, but there's no reason that somebody can't emerge as the next Clemson in the Big 12. And I think the possibilities are there. Oklahoma State. I think Arizona's got a chance to be really good next year, mainly because they made me money every single week the last 7 weeks once they changed quarterbacks, and we've talked about that from a gambling perspective. But I think the Big 12 can be. It's never going to be the same without OU and Texas, but I think it can be really good. And somebody needs to step up, and that's why I think this UH job is good for somebody, because I think UH is one of the schools that can do it. I think Utah can do it. Colorado with Dion is really intriguing.
Very.
And, I know things fell off, but that's still a guy who's going to be able to recruit like crazy. Now he's going to have to, build from there. He's got to get some linemen. That was the problem in the Pac-12. But, I think all this can happen. First, I got to tell you about Piper's Plumbing. Guys, another sponsor of the show. Really love these guys. If you need a plumber, and you always need a plumber, right? 832-632-2583. And they're based in the League City area, but they do work all over the place. And they do whatever you need. I mean, whatever problems you have plumbing-wise, and everybody has them, right? They can do video consultations. They take care of. They're very safe. They all wear masks and gloves. But they can do plumbing, water heaters, tankless water heaters, main water line repair, gas tests and gas line and replacement and repair. All of it. Drainage blocks. you name it, faucets, garbage disposal. We all have these things, and it's hard to find somebody reliable. Well, these guys are reliable. They do a fantastic job, a quality job, a fair cost, and you're going to be happy with them. I guarantee you. And I've said this before. I guess I get asked all the time, do you know a good plumber? And it's like, no, I know a great one. So Piper's Plumbing, 832-632-2583. Give them a chance and you will be happy. All right. So a couple of things from college football that I want to get to. I'm hoping Lawyer Dave can join me at the end of the show because Michigan was able to beat Ohio State. And it's kind of funny because Dave's bought himself this country place that they're working on, that they're having to do a lot of work on. Mm-hmm. So usually during Michigan games, I'm texting him constantly.
Oh, boy.
But he wasn't watching the game live, and so I didn't text him. But I was sitting at a bar with a friend of mine, shout out to Mike, who also is a Michigan fan. So we're rooting for Michigan, and we're sitting next to two Ohio State people.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, nice old people. Probably not going to live long, but they were nice. And but you know, after the game, I just wanted to drop a Lawyer Dave says suck it on him, but I didn't. I mean, we were really nice.
Good.
But
Good.
a hell of a game. Lived up to the hype.
Yeah, that game was when the Michigan offensive lineman went down with the injury and he got carted off and everything. I think that seemed to kind of galvanize those guys. Like, hey, you know, I want to say they won the Joe Moore Award of Best Offensive Line 2 years running. So those guys are a pretty tight-knit group. And that's the reason why when Blake Corum scored the touchdown thereafter, he threw up the 6'5" to honor his teammate.
Yeah.
But Ohio State, you can see the difference in not having a C.J. Stroud back there because there's just some throws that kid should be able to make that he just can't make. And I don't know why. I can't for the life of me tell you what it is. I can't quite put a finger on it. But I know the difference between Kyle McCord and C.J. Stroud, and it is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge for that team.
And I mean, they still have the best receiver in college football, I think, in Harrison Jr. They're still very good on defense and also have a very good offensive line.
And Trevion Henderson is a great running back.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, they've got everything, I think, but the quarterback. And, you know, that's the difference between last year's team and this year's team. And I think if they had C.J. Stroud, they're going to win that game.
Easily.
But, you know, Michigan also has one of the best front sevens on defense that I've seen in a while. And when we get to the playoffs, I'm really interested because a couple of years ago when they played Georgia, I thought, you know, Michigan's got the lines to compete with Georgia. But the more I watch Georgia, it's like nobody has the lines to compete with Georgia. And
no.
I as I watch this, you know, I'm as of today, I still think Georgia's going to win again. And it's just they wear you down. And they don't have the greatest quarterback in the world, although he's a fine Southern gentleman, Mr. Carlson Beck. I don't know why all their quarterbacks have fine Southern gentleman names, but Stetson Bennett the fourth.
Exactly. That was
much better than the third.
That was the quintessential Southern name right there, Stetson Bennett the fourth. But I don't believe in this Georgia team, to be perfectly honest with you. I really don't. They've had way too many close calls against a team that they should have obliterated. And once, maybe twice, I can forgive you. But when you do that 3 or 4 times in a season, and it's like not just you barely beat this sorry team, like you escaped with victories against some of these teams that you should have just clobbered. And so when I see a team like that, when you get to that level of competition, they typically play to the level of their competition. It just takes them to have that one funky game, and then they're out of the playoff. It's one and done. It's not like a round robin or soccer or anything like that. No, it's one and done. So if you screw up and have one of those off games, you're out of there.
Yeah, although I would push back on that and say I've watched every Georgia game this year, and yeah, they've had some close games, but at no point was a game ever in doubt. Georgia was going to win all those games. It was closer than you'd like to see. I mean, they're not going to beat everybody 59-10, but they were wearing those teams down. And by the fourth quarter, they could run the ball however they wanted. Their defense was getting to the quarterback. I never felt once this year that they were in danger of losing a game.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought the Missouri game was one. Um, the Ole Miss game, they blew them out. There was nothing there. Georgia
Yeah,
Tech gave
but
them a scare this past week.
they were
I
sleepwalking through
just I
that.
don't know.
No, and in the Missouri game, they dominated the second half. I mean, that game wasn't nearly as close
They
as
really
they were.
did.
And
They really did.
yeah. So I think what
I
we're
don't know. I just not as confident in that team this year for some reason.
well, let me. So here's what I think is going to happen. I think Alabama's capable of beating them.
Mhm.
I don't think they will, but I think one of those two teams is automatically in the playoff. I think whoever wins between Oregon and Washington is in, which I think will be Oregon this time. And then I think the wild card is going to be what happens with Florida State, and and obviously I think Michigan's going to get in if they beat Iowa. I mean, Iowa's not in Michigan's league, but they just ugly up games. They're hard to watch. I mean, I hate watching Iowa
Yep.
games, but they can ugly up games, and Michigan's. You come off that Ohio State win. Now I could also see Michigan beating them 59-0 because Iowa can't score. I mean, you know, uh, hell, I score more than they do, and I can't buy it there. So I think Michigan's in, and then it comes down to, is it Florida State, which I think is going to have a real problem with Louisville. Although I thought Florida would beat them, but I think Louisville is not a pushover, and if they lose that game without their quarterback, they're not getting to the playoff. And so, to me, it's them, it's Texas, or do you take Ohio State? Do you take another one-loss team? I think I don't think a one-loss Washington gets in. So, or maybe you get Georgia and Alabama, depending on the outcome of that game. But I kind of think that's what we're down to.
Yeah, I'm hoping for. I mean, I love a good mess. And I love when things get muddled down and whatnot. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm looking for chaos. I want chaos. I want Oregon to beat Washington. I want Alabama to beat Georgia. I want Iowa to beat Michigan. I want utter chaos.
That's communism. That's not chaos. You want all of it to go wrong.
Because well, here's my thing, and I said this this past Tuesday when we went live on my podcast. I'm gonna have you on one Wednesday night. We just started it like a couple weeks ago, trying to get our feet wet. I would love to see Oregon and Washington somehow, some kind of way get in and have two Pac-12 teams in the last year of its existence. I know that probably won't happen because other things that I needed to have happen, like Washington to get up to 1 or 2, did not happen yet. So I honestly, that's just me being a contrarian, wanting, just utter chaos and everything to go wrong. I really think that Washington is going to beat Oregon again. I just believe in Penix over Bo Nix. I think that Alabama is going to beat Georgia. And I think that that may get Alabama in. Although if Texas holds serve, Alabama, it's just way so muddled right now. Like I can't see what 4 teams are actually going to end up in the actual playoff right now because there's way too much that could happen.
Yeah, I can see them clearly.
If I had to pick one team, though, if I just had to pick one team, I would probably pick Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, I see a path where Michigan loses to Iowa, but not much one. And B. Hannon says, Jermaine, what's the name of your podcast and what platform? And by the way, let's talk off air because I'm expanding the Falconcast network, and be kind of nice to have you on it.
Man, okay. Hey, I got a little more room for some more stuff, but it's at Sucio Sports. You can find us on Twitter and on Instagram. A couple of my friends started a podcast network a couple years ago, and they were wanting a sports podcast to put on it. They had been asking me, and I was like, "Nah, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it." And that was just me, just really not thinking that I should do it. And everybody was like, "No, you really should." So I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." And it was one of those things I had been wanting to do for a while, just to have control over what content that I'm putting out. And you know how this feels when you can control your own content and you can put it out and you set your own schedule. It's good because you have authority over all of it. Like, you controls what goes on, what comes in, comes out, whatever. So it's been pretty fun. We've been having a good time with it. Like I told the guys, I'm just here to provide a platform and to give everybody, like, some shine, some light. We want to kind of get our feet under us kind of first, and then start maybe bringing back guests, because we started off with guests and we were like, okay, we need to get our chemistry down pat first, and then we'll go move forward from there.
Well, I've talked about this a couple times, but what I'm doing right now, I'm in the process of selling off a chunk of the Falconcast company, and I'm going to use that
Mm-hmm.
money to hire a real ad person who has experience and knows what they're doing, and we're going to expand the network. Is the other thing we're going to do, because the ad inventory on the show has gotten pretty good, and once we start increasing
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be even bigger. And so what I want to do is, English Rich, who's been on a couple times, we're going to do a TV movie writing podcast, and we'll get some famous people on. Just because I love
Nice.
that stuff. I'm going to help him get that started, and then we're going to work in some other people.
Yeah.
But I'd like to add another day of the Falcon Cast, but I want to add a few more that are just part of the network. And if we sell ad
Right.
inventory for them, we just split it with them. And I've got some people who, and plus I want to give some people an opportunity to get their podcast out to people, because we got a pretty big following, and if we run it through this network, they're going to have an opportunity. And
It's gonna have a good reach, a really good reach.
yeah, and a lot of our hardcore P1 listeners and watchers really enjoy the kind of stuff. So I'm not putting anybody on there, right? Like, we're not
Right.
yeah, we're not going and getting Bob's Used Condoms and letting them do a show. That's not going to happen.
Bob's Used Condom Emporium.
Yeah, exactly. Not going to happen. But I think the opportunity is there for some people, and I've always been about trying to help people grow their brands, and I've always tried to be a mentor to people, and this is going to give me an opportunity to do that, and I think it's going to be really cool. So I'm hoping that's all happening first of the year. We're going to start the movie TV podcast very soon. I just got to get a couple things worked out on that, but it also is going to give my ad salesperson more inventory, right? And I've also talked about a music podcast, and we can go get Guitar Center and things like that. So there's going to be it's going to be a great opportunity for whoever sells ads for me. It's also going to be a great opportunity for other people to do this stuff, and some of the podcasts I'll do with them at the beginning, because I do love music, and we're talking today about maybe doing a show on my birthday, December 18th, for our next concert. I was hoping it would be here, but I don't think the room's going to be ready yet. So Chuck says you don't want to grow Bob's Used Condoms. Hey, at least somebody's using them, right? See, I don't know where those come from. Are they like walking down the street with gloves on, picking them up and then cleaning them?
I think they have a donation station.
Oh, great. So am I supposed to clean it before I donate it? I mean, I have to actually. I'd actually have to have.
Hey, I don't know. I've just heard of Bob's Used Condom Emporium and their drop-off station. I don't know how that goes. I would just say, if you see crusty white stuff on the outside of it, just be careful.
Well, why on the outside? Wouldn't it be on the inside?
But I'm saying, if it's used and it didn't get cleaned, and you're trying to push it in, you know how it goes.
Yeah. All right. One thing real quick. Let's be semi-serious for a second. Let me tell you about Lanham Industries. Andrew, a great supporter of the show. They're everything you need in Lake Livingston. Quality service for your vacation home. If you have a weekend home out there, if you want to buy one, which I'm hoping to get there pretty soon, consultation services to find the right home and location.
And you're trying to push it in.
Anyway, it's your one-stop shop for all vacation home service needs: cleaning, lawn care, laundry, maintenance, inventory management, and property management. veteran owned and operated, which, you know, AJ and I have been about from the very beginning. Consistent 5-star ratings, great crew, highly trained. Give them a call, 936-581-6166, or just go to landofindustries.com. Or if you can't remember any of that, you can always hit me up. Just DM me on Twitter or email me at falconcast@yahoo.com, and we will do that. You know, I'll get you in touch with them. They're awesome people. Proud to have them. So, all right, real quickly, let's blast through a couple of the NFL games. What stood out to you yesterday? Besides, we'll do Texans in a second, but what stood out to you yesterday? I mean, great game between the Eagles and Bills. Boy, I like this new scheduling where you got the Eagles having to go through Chiefs, Bills, and 49ers in 3 weeks.
They got a murderer's row. They have a murderer's row. Buddy of mine, Keys, that I do the podcast with, he's a huge Eagles fan, and we've been talking about it the last couple of weeks, this murderer's row that they have to go against. But one thing that really stuck out to me, besides just like that Eagles Bills game, because that was an unbelievable game. That was game of the week so far. But it's Russell Wilson on this reclamation project in Denver. And yeah, they beat the Browns 29-12, and you know they're without Watson and whatnot, but they still have that incredible defense. But for them to start off 1-5 and look as bad as they did, and hear the rumors coming out of Denver of them trading off other assets, and then for them to reel off 5 straight, we got to take our hats off and give them their props, because whatever Sean Payton, whatever mojo he worked on Russell Wilson and that team, it seems to finally have set in and started working these last 5 weeks.
Well, and it was always going to take time to adjust to his offense, right? And Russell Wilson had to adjust too, and stop throwing the ball way downfield and adjusting to what Sean Payton does and does well. And it's interesting that they're coming into Houston this week, because a few weeks ago I would have said, hey, this will be a game that the Texans could win. I don't know now. I mean, the way Denver's playing defensively, I never would have thought this when they were giving up 70 to the Dolphins, but they fixed that defense. So
right.
Yeah, the other thing that stood out, and before we get to Texans, and I want to get Tracy on here in a couple minutes, but I still think the Ravens might be the best team in football. I know the Eagles won a big game yesterday, but the Ravens are just a complete team, and the Chargers are a fraud. I mean, a complete fraud.
Oh, big time. And that Bosa injury isn't doing him any favors either.
No, but I think the one thing, I never thought I'd say this because he's the greatest kicker in the history of the league, but maybe be a little worried about Justin Tucker right now.
I want to be, but I just can't because of his track record. I legit want to be worried, but I keep thinking back to, like, this guy's been the greatest kicker in football since like maybe his 3rd year in the league, roughly or so. He's clutch. He's accurate. He can kick from distance. I mean, there's nothing that this guy can't do when it comes to kicking. So I'm just going to trust in him until he just totally has a meltdown and falls off the face of the planet.
But that might be happening. That's 4 misses for him this year and not long field goals. So does that ask something? Is the terrible officiating simply a matter of incompetence, or is it something sinister going on? I think we saw it in college football. We saw it in the NFL. I just think they have bad refs, and they've had bad refs for a long time. And I think that the skill level of the good teams really brings that out. I mean, some of those interference calls were just complete bullshit, and some of the holding calls, and of course, Texans got away with one on the interception that was pretty obvious. But there were also a bunch of those like that's not pass interference. I don't know what that is, and it wasn't just that game.
There were holding calls as well, defensive holding calls that weren't technically holding calls. Like there was one in the Texans game where it should have been called and it wasn't. And then there was one that was called where he literally he touched the guy and got called for defensive holding. There was no pull of any sort. But it's been bad even at the high school level this year. I've seen high school, college, and NFL games this year on TV and in person, a mixture of all three. And it's just been horrible on all 3 levels.
Yeah, I wouldn't know about high school, but I will say this. I'm the guy who always says, well, it evens out. I don't think it's evening. I think it's just all bad calls, and then it's each crew's different. Some of them just let everything go, and
Mm-hmm.
some of them call everything. It's like, how about some consistency? And this is something AJ and I always talked about. Those guys should be available to the media after the game to answer questions. It should
Yes,
be totally transparent. So yeah, and
definitely.
B. Hannon brings up Chargers Ravens game was bad too. So anyway, all right. Well, Jermaine, I'll reach out and talk to you tomorrow about some of this stuff. But great stuff. Great having you on. Always
Man,
appreciate you. It's been a while, but
yes,
we'll do this again, and I'll reach out to you tomorrow. We'll talk about some of this stuff.
definitely. All right, man. You take it easy.
All right, you too.
Appreciate
All
it.
right, we are going to bring in the great Tracy TC Gold Rush with Dr. Linville's work in front of me, which is good. Since he didn't call in, I'll go ahead and do his live read right now. So obviously, he's done a great job with my hair, but he also does all kinds of stuff, including what you see right in front of you. And the thing about the hair grafts, no anesthesia, it's just numbing medicine. It's like going to the dentist. And I probably shouldn't have gone to work the day after I had it done, or the day I had it done, but I could have gone the next day. And 95% of the grafts take because they're handled and prepared safely. He's got an individualized plan for each and every patient. $3.50 per graft right now. And all you have to do is go to hairspecialisthouston.com/getfalconhair. And he will take care of you. You book a consultation, and your consult fee will be waived. That's $150 value. And if you want to look like Tracy, well, good luck. But he can do that work for you too. So, Tracy, what's going on? Always a pleasure. Interesting weekend, man.
Oh, it was awesome. Saturday was incredible. Truly, it's one of the best. Rivalry weekend is one of the best all week. So look forward to it, and it was awesome. Starting with the Iron Bowl, to me, that was even though you had the big one in the big house, this one ended crazy. Like, who would have thought Alabama was converting a 4th and goal from the 31-yard line
Yeah,
on the anniversary of the kick six, no less.
Yeah, that was an amazing finish. Basically, Auburn transferred in UH's defense for that play. But yeah, I mean, it's you look at it and say, how do you let that happen? But I mean, at the end of games, crazy stuff happens, and that was pretty.
The muff punt, the muff punt. But it's shocking to me that they were in that game. But if the craziest stat to me was Alabama gave up 244 rushing yards. That's insane. I mean, we've always said they have issues with running quarterbacks. Man, did they. That's the only reason Auburn was in that game was the rushing attack and their quarterback.
And, Auburn has, well, I mean, they sort of threw a and they're doing better. They're doing better under Hugh Freeze. I mean, the record's not going to show it, but they've had a couple good games. And this particular, obviously, you get a rivalry game like this, they're going to raise their game, and they definitely did. Had every chance. I mean, I still think Alabama was a better team.
Absolutely,
the way it played out, but damn, it was worth the price of admission.
America was rooting for Auburn. I have to tell you. I mean, watching that game, it was a great game. It was back and forth, and the stadium was rocking. Even after losing by double digits to New Mexico State the week before, the fans were all into it. The players were into it, and it showed. The better team won, and it took a miracle. But in my opinion, how were they even in that game if I'm Alabama? It's the rushing. It's the rushing yards they gave up. And they gave up a lot of rushing yards to Jane Daniels, too, in LSU. So, that's maybe a hole that they need to try to fix really quick going against Georgia this weekend.
Yeah, because Georgia with their offensive line, they can run the football. And, Jermaine and I were talking about this earlier. I still think Georgia's the best team in the country. I think on the lines.
Absolutely.
They're so good. And, I've talked about this almost every week about how good their lines are. But, I could see a scenario where Alabama wins, but I expect Georgia to win. I expect them to be the 1 seed, and I expect them to be really, really tough in the playoffs.
I do too. They did struggle as well against the run against Georgia Tech. They gave up over 200 rushing yards. So again, that's something that Georgia's going to have to look at. But I do think overall they have talent everywhere, and they have skill position players everywhere. So I think that's where, in their defense, I believe will step up against Alabama, and I think they're going to have a plan, Kirby will, to contain Milroe as best they can.
All right, let's get to some of these coaching changes because kind of a weird story about Mark Stoops and the Aggies first, which I'll be honest, I think they dodged
that
a bullet
was weird.
Yeah, I think they dodged a bullet there because I always thought Mike Elko would be the best hire for me. You never know if it's going to work out, but I think they got the right guy, and I don't know, because when you start competing in the SEC, you're going up against Nick Saban, you're going up against Brian Kelly,
Kirby,
yeah, Kirby, and even in the West, which isn't going to be the West next year.
Lane Kiffin,
yeah,
10-win seasons.
Yeah, who's like, well, the worst coach in the West got fired this year.
Yeah,
but everybody else, even Arkansas is a well-coached team. I mean, that's just one of those things. But I like Mike Elko. Tell me why I'm wrong.
No, I like him too. Sorry. I think it's a great fit. I don't know. I just retweeted a video of Aggies being Aggies. I think he understands the culture, and it is truly one of the most unique places in college football, and you have to be able to understand it. And maybe that's something Jimbo never really got. But Elko's coming in there. I think his deal, they announced his deal was 6 years, $42 million. So it's only it's not that expensive. And he has incentives to get to the SEC title game. But I think he brings that culture fit and the defense that they're looking to get back to.
Yeah, so and we've talked about this. The Aggie defense hasn't been the same.
Atrocious.
And if he just brings that back, and obviously it depends on who he gets as offensive coordinator. He's going to need somebody.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. That's a big hire. But I like it a lot for Aggie. We'll just have to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
And then Jeff Lebby's an interesting hire too. That is a guy who's getting back to the Mike Leach roots.
Yes.
And that's what
high tempo offense. Yeah. High tempo offense was under Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, UCF. He leads. I don't know if you knew this. He has 14 games with 50 points or more, and that leads all offensive coordinators. So he's going to bring that in. It's really sad to see Will Rogers put his name in the transfer portal, and they bring a guy in like this.
Yeah.
So I think if I'm Mississippi State, I'm very excited. They're never going to get one of those massive names at that school just because of money. But I think for them, just to get to bowls and be competitive is what they look for every year.
Lamont brings up something interesting that kind of ties in with talking about A&M, because he thinks Jimbo to UH should be an option. My only concern with that is how often have we seen guys leave big schools where they didn't have success at the end and drop down a level and it doesn't work. I mean, it didn't work with Kevin Sumlin, went to Arizona. I mean, it was and Tom Herman now back Charlie Strong didn't quite work out. When you've got that high profile job and you have to take a step back, I don't know what it is. I think it's negative publicity or what.
Yeah, I think it's a mental challenge too. You're going from a big fish in a big pond to, a much smaller pond, and I think you're much less irrelevant. And nothing against U of H, but you're not the powerful program that Aggie is, and in the best conference in the country. So I think that's where you take your step back, and I think it's just a mental game for these guys. They're used to being, all of the names that you just said were at massive schools,
Right.
And so taking a step back is a huge thing. And I'd be very worried of that. I'd look at someone young and hungry to come in to keep get the program back on track.
If they could hire the devil if he's going to win games at UH. I mean, this has been so frustrating the last couple of years.
I'm sure.
Except maybe Art Browse. I don't think he's quite the devil, but he's certainly in that devil's ring of honor. But So let's get to the Heisman. I know you make a really strong case for Jaden Daniels. I really wanted him to have a bigger game Saturday.
Mhm.
He was good,
Blame
but
the defense, Fred. Blame
eh,
the defense. They kept Aggie on the field. But here's what you need to look at. I tweeted out the stats. The guy is leading everywhere. He averages 10 yards, 10.2 yards a play. No one else comes close to that. That's a first down just by himself. He has 90 plays of 20 plus yards alone by himself this year. I mean, he's blowing Joe Burrow numbers away. Plus, he's a 1,100-yard rusher. So you can't just dismiss it and say, "Oh, the winner of the Pac-12 is going to get it." There is more momentum to. Kurt Herbstreit said, "Who's getting his vote?" Flat out on national TV on College game day on Saturday. It's Jane Daniels, and you're hearing more and more people coming out because of the historic performance he's had.
yeah, I mean, listen, I think he's the best player in college football, but that's not where the Heisman goes all the time. And there's only been, and we talked about this last week, there's only been 2 other times where a player on a team with that many losses who wasn't
Three.
in the mix for a national championship or a playoff. And both years there weren't other good options. When Manziel won and when Robert Griffin III won. They're just.
But is Bo Nix really, if you look at his numbers and you dive deep into his numbers, look at his numbers, and he's on a team that has an actual defense. So, are you going to hold it? It just makes no sense to hold it against the guy. And it's 3 losses. It's not like he's 5 losses or a Joe Schmo. This guy set 2 FBS records, 2. And that's incredible, and it should be honored. And I'm just going to leave it at that. To me, it speaks for itself.
Yeah, the only pushback I'll have on this is I think if Bo Nix has a convincing win against Washington, that's a Heisman defining moment that wins you the trophy. Doesn't mean I think he's better, and I think that's part of the problem with these debates is you start tearing the other guy down. I don't have anything to tear down about.
Oh
Jaden
gosh,
Daniels.
no, he's had an amazing year. Bo Nix, when you think about him, I watched him because he played at Auburn. When you watched where he came from, and he did have to leave the SEC to get this kind of year, so I'm just going to state that. But this is not a debate on these guys suck. Anyone who gets to New York is worthy, and there you go.
Well, the thing I would say about Bo Nix, and not you, but I have a lot of SEC friends that just remember Auburn Bo Nix. They haven't watched him at Oregon. It's a different
I
player.
watch the games. I watch him.
Yeah, he's in his 6th year, and sometimes guys mature. Joe Burrow was a perfect example. He got
Even
better
Jane
and better.
Daniels, 5th year. Always when guys mature like this and they've played the game long enough, they're typically going to get it. And that's why you see more guys who have more years under their belt winning it now more than ever, and keeping and getting a guy like that in a transfer portal is key. Both of them are transfers. And if I'm a coach who may be a quarterback away, I think LSU needs to look at the transfer portal and give Nussmeier a run for his money. That's where you're going to get the goods. And to me, you got to look at that.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. It's worked out for a lot of teams.
Absolutely.
Now, some of them it hasn't. Like, I would never take any Notre Dame transfer quarterback.
No.
Ever in a million years. But in both of them's case, we don't see this a lot where guys get an opportunity to play a 4th and 5th or even 6th year in this case. Because if you're really good, you're gone after you go get drafted. And, those guys aren't developed. And I think that I was having a conversation with Joe Spano, who did the show with me last week, off air, and I told him, I want you to watch Jaden Daniels this weekend because I think that could be your next Giants quarterback.
Oh, God, don't do that to that poor boy.
Oh, well, he's a big Giants. He's a big Giants fan, so.
Gotcha. Yeah,
and he knows
they're going to get a quarterback. So
yeah.
The good thing for anybody whose team is in the NFL, there's a lot of options this year, and I do think you're going to have more hits than misses in the NFL draft. And both now, Daniels came back. He didn't have to come back. He came back. Bo Nix came back, and both of them are expected to be 1st-round picks now.
And usually the guys that come back don't help their status, but these guys did.
Absolutely. Their strategy, Jaden Daniels especially. Bo Nix was already getting kind of buzz, but Jaden came back and blew it out of the park. Yeah, there were a ton of NFL scouts at that game on Saturday.
As an NFL quarterback, if I have a choice, I want Jaden. But and I think at the combine, his stock's going to go like Anthony Richardson's did last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he may not last to the Giants.
If you watch his game, though, if you actually watch, he is a lot like Bo Nix in this area where they actually do go through their progressions. He doesn't run first. Now, there's designed run plays for him, but he is not looking to run, and you could see that when you watch him on film.
Yeah, the only thing, and this will just be NFL coaching, I think he needs to tighten up his release a little bit. He's kind of got a loopy release, but that's fixable.
He's got to protect himself better.
Yeah. That too.
Yeah,
but,
he can't be running into people like Josh Allen does. Yeah,
he's not that bad, but he's a tough dude.
He put 20 pounds on, and they may ask him to put a little more weight on, but he'll be good. But getting back to the SEC championship, I think Georgia is going to win, and I think they're going to come out and really want to stick it to Bama. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, I haven't. I don't know from a betting perspective what I'm going to do yet. I'll have that by Thursday.
Yeah,
but I do think
it's only 5 points. I think it's only 5 points.
Yeah, it's one of those numbers that's right where I would put it. So I'm like, what am I going to do here? Because guess what? This past weekend was our last real weekend of college football where we had a full schedule. And
I know.
It makes me sad to my heart. And in every fiber of my being, I just want to start crying because it's over. But we still have the championships and the playoffs. But as far as what
do you think about the line for Washington and Oregon? I think it's at 9. That seems very high. I know Washington has been very. They're going to come out. I'm just saying these games will bring out the best in both teams, and I just think that's almost disrespectful to Washington. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I think that's a crazy line, and. Well, I do like Oregon to win.
Yeah.
Especially if they play the same game they did before at Washington, where Oregon missed a field goal, and
their coach cost them some
bad decisions there. I thought they were the better team that day, and it's interesting though. I think that line is where it is because since then Washington has really not looked great.
No,
and Oregon
they won.
Yeah, they've won the games, but Oregon's also been destroying people, and so I think you have an inflated line there.
Yeah, so are you battle tested if you're Washington because you're winning these close games, or do you go with the team that's just laying the wood to people without? I don't believe, and this is just why I watched that game Friday night. I don't believe Oregon State was as good as their number next to their name.
Right.
I think their defense was supposed to be better. But I'm sorry, you have DJ as your quarterback, and he's barely completing 50% of his passes. That's not going to get it done against Oregon.
Yeah, they went backwards after a good start, but so is Washington. So did Washington State. Yeah, I think I mentioned it's my favorite team in the Pac-12 over the last 7 weeks has been Arizona because they've been a cover.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Ever since their quarterback.
They did it again.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean, they just annihilated Washington State. They annihilated Utah. That's going to be a fun team to have in the Big 12 next year. Because
do you think they're going to keep their coach?
I don't know. I think it's going to take a pretty big.
I would look at him. I would look at him hard if I'm a school that maybe offer him a better program to go to, especially with the issues they're having with their budget.
Yeah, I don't know how many better programs are going to have openings now. I mean, you could argue A&M was the best job available, and
there may still be some that come out.
There's always some surprise. Somebody goes to the NFL, but I would expect him to be around for another year, but we'll find out. Real quickly before we wrap it up, how about your 49ers? I'm looking at. I was talking earlier about how I love the scheduling where the Eagles have had to play the Chiefs, the Bills, and now they get the 49ers. And
very physical weeks for them, and it's showing. I think they've got some injury issues, but I know they find a way to win. They haven't looked their best, but I can't tell you, following San Francisco media players, this is the game they circled from when they lost the championship last year. They want to go in there and they want to win this game with a healthy team, and they're healthy. So I think the Niners are going to come out with a win. I think it's going to be another nail biter, but I think they have the team to get it done.
Yeah, I'm excited for that game, and the NFL's been a lot of fun this past week, and
Yeah.
Half Nielsen mentioned Michigan is likely going to open up. That's probably true with Harbaugh, but that would be a good job for him. But it'll be interesting because I think there are some guys like Eli Drinkwater in Missouri would be a guy that bigger schools would look
He's
at.
done an amazing job.
Yeah, I mean Missouri's big because they're in the SEC, but they're not SEC elite, right? If you could get a Big Ten elite job and they pay you a bunch of money, I could see that happening. But anyway, all right, Tracy, great stuff as always. Always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for illustrating my live read, and always a good time. We'll talk next week after the championship and start setting up those playoffs.
Absolutely. Love it. Thanks, Fred. Have a good week.
You too. All right. That's Tracy Cowley. She's wonderful. And like I said, it always works when I have the Dr. Linville read right before she comes on, because she's more than happy to tell you that's where she got her boobs. So, and they aren't unpleasant to look upon. Anyway, one more read, and then I'll wrap things up. But Lawyer Dave, who I said I didn't get to text him during the Michigan-Ohio State game because he wasn't watching it live for like the first time ever. But if you need a lawyer, 713-626-8900. Just an amazing attorney. He does personal injury, and but if you have a legal question about anything, then he'll get you to the right person. And everything's free until you win your case. And if you're hurt in a car accident, he'll get you to a doctor, and you can see what the doctor he sent me to did for my neck. They will take care of you. They pay for everything up front. You only pay when you win. Because Lawyer Dave likes to gamble. He's a betting man, and we've gambled on a lot of things together. But when it comes to this, then call him right away. Because if you're in a car accident, the insurance company is going to have a lawyer, and they're going to try to screw you. So you need a better lawyer. And there's nobody better than Lawyer Dave. 713-626-8900. If you need a lawyer, you know what to do. You better dial Dave. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here with a little TV for you. I watched a couple things this weekend. There was a Netflix series called A Nearly Normal Family. It was about a murder. It was okay. I mean, it's not one where I'd say, oh, go watch this. It's awesome. But it was okay. Although this is something that AJ and I talked about a lot before. I don't like shows where all the women are not attractive. I'm sorry. What happened to hot women in shows? Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, it's one of those, if you're bored, it's worth watching. And then I watched a movie called Section 8, which was kind of interesting. I thought the premise was really good. Had a couple pretty good actors in it. Mickey Rourke's in it. And Dermot Mulroney. And, of course, Ivan Drago. But he plays an American. But those guys were in it, and plot's okay. It's not horrible, but again, it's not one where I'm going to say, go watch this thing. But give it a try. It's not bad. So, yeah, Zed says you can blame the feminists for taking hot chicks off TV. Well, that's a whole thing that'll get me canceled if I get into my theories for it, which, I mean, I'd have to cancel myself since it's my podcast. But, yeah, I just think that the direction has gone, and it's not like they're better actors than the hot ones. So, yeah. B. Hannon says, check out Love Is One. It's about a cult. Yeah, I will check that out. Thank you, B. Hannon. And Half Nielsen says he blames the hot aliens for not coming yet and taking these acting roles. Well, they tried in Avatar, and that didn't really work because they were blue and they were alien, but something about 8-foot tall women, just not a fan of. All right, guys, that is going to wrap it up for the Falconcast. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Love all you guys. We'll be back on Thursday. AJ and I will break down all the gambling for you. And hopefully it'll be a fun show, as it always is. And until then, stay sportsy, Gulf Coast badasses.